So I just got off the call with a motion designer who was feeling invisible to his clients and didn't know what to do. I wanted to release the behind the scenes of this call so that you can also experience these unlocks that we went through. I've never done this before, but I believe this was a really powerful call. And I want to teach you the tactics, but also give you the motivation to go from being invisible to standing out to your clients.
I see so many posts up on LinkedIn where someone says, here's a position that's available. Hundreds of people respond. And then you think to yourself, well, did that person even see what I posted? Have they even responded back to me? And how do you stand out from 100 people applying to position when you see these positions come up? I feel very invisible currently in this market, which is so saturated right now.
Like, the unfortunate thing is, like, almost like by the time someone's posting about a job, like, it's kind of too late in my mind a little bit. Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
Obviously you're going to have much more competition if they're posting something, because they're going to get much more influx of people. Whereas, like, if they need someone and you're just top of their mind, then that's fine. They don't have to consider anyone else. Does that make sense? So it's more about, I think it's more about thinking, how can I be top of the person that I want to work with mind when they need some help? And I think the ways to do that is, have this inbound, outbound marketing strategy, which you talk about in Client Quest, where you've got the social media community part going, where you're posting, you're commenting on other people's stuff, you're following producers, you're commenting on their posts, you're following directors, direct clients, whatever, whoever. Like, you have to kind of decide really who you want to target. So this is where kind of like saying, okay, I'm gonna follow these 5 producers from these 5 animation studios, or do you see what I mean? Like, narrow it down a little bit. So you're kind of doing that in like a more organic way, but also warming people up a little bit. So then you can do some direct outreach on email. And after you've sort of maybe had a conversation, or like, that they've looked at your profile after you've like commented on their posts or something like that, and then directly emailing them. And then I found like, and sometimes you might just get we'll keep you like on our books or whatever. But like, that eventually does like turn into jobs, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Like, it's not always them saying, no, go away. It's like them saying, okay, cool, but we don't have a job for you right now, basically. And so then what I would do is I would put those people into my CRM, and I would have them all in my CRM, but I'd put them into the next stage, in the attraction stage, where you haven't worked with them yet, but you've had some conversations, that kind of stuff. And then I would work on regularly checking in with that and keep going back to them, and then you just need to keep putting people in the top, in the awareness bit, in the top of the funnel, and just keep trying to pull these people down through. So you kind of just focusing on your different stages at like different points in your week, let's say. It's really hard when you are coming from a place of scarcity, you're like, in your mind, you're like, I need work.
You're scaring me. Please.
It's really hard to not have that come across. But I think you've just got to kind of trick yourself almost to be like, I have everything I need, have more an abundant mindset, and try and think about how can I help other people? Because as soon as you provide value and you start helping other people, I think opportunities naturally come towards you more.
Yeah, you're so right. You have to project a persona. I mean, I feel like I'm 2 personas. At home, I'm having sleepless nights worrying about finance and trying to get work. And then I'm online, I'm projecting this like, I'm amazing and check out my work and let's connect. And it's, they so polar contrast. What we feel and how we approach our professional personas online is, it's an interesting learning curve.
It's not about like pretending like that everything is okay all the time too, right? I think that's maybe the wrong way. Like, I think that we can be vulnerable, and people like that as well. I think you can do that. I think there's a difference though between being vulnerable and like being desperate. Does that make sense?
It's such a hard line to know where vulnerability is, because you want vulnerability to make other people feel like they're part of you. At the same time, you don't want vulnerability to put someone off.
What I would say is, once you've built these friendships and stuff like that, I think you can say to your close closer people. Like, look, I really need some work if you hear of anything, you know, like your friends who are motion designers, just placing that in people's minds sometimes, like a few people, that can be helpful too.
And I think what's also changed nowadays is, due to COVID and a lot of people working remotely, the ability to build a rapport and a personableness and a vulnerability is almost somehow lost because we're all behind computers nowadays. I mean, I've been really in two minds about actually prioritizing in the calendar once every 2 weeks to go out into London and just to meet somebody in the business who I've built a rapport with, because the ability to ghost or not respond becomes bigger when there's no emotional tie to that person. There's this feeling of disconnect, which is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's even more loud and shouting this year than I've felt in any years I've ever worked.
I think you're right about that. But then also it reminds me of when I first went freelance, I listened to a lot of travel podcasts. And then I found this other podcast called Location Indie. And then I went to a meetup in London with some Location Indie people. I found a picture the other day. I think there was only 4 of us, which is really funny. And then I met a guy called Jeremy who said, I was telling him about my idea of Motion Hatch. And I was like, oh yeah, I think it'll be something where it helps motion designers with business skills, but I'm not sure, you know, I know loads of people blog, but I'm crap at writing. Like I was saying all this to him. And then he said, maybe you could do a podcast.
You just gave me a great idea.
And if I hadn't been part of this group Location Indie and I hadn't met Jeremy, I wouldn't be talking to all of you right now. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be doing this.
Well, it's amazing formula you've built there. I mean, one of the biggest things about Motion Hatch and School of Motion, a lot of them, is the fact that it's not just what you offer, but it's the community you build after you started it. That is the most important part, to feel part of something. It's the one thing that'll make your business grow, is when people feel part of something special.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, what can all of you do that you think, oh, I'm interested in that, or maybe if I go to that, like I might meet some cool people, like, you know, not necessarily like always thinking about how can this every action that I do in my life lead to a job, because I don't think that life works like that. And I think that potentially if you're open-minded to opportunities and you try and just kind of put yourself out there more online and in person, then I think like naturally these things start to come to you, especially if you're the person who's trying to bring other people together as well. I found that to be really valuable.
If you want to learn more about how to scale your business, then you should watch these videos next.